Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The gun didn't shake in Lysander's hand, though the man kneeling before him was the only person who had ever made his heart stutter with anything other than hatred. "Do you know how long I've waited for this moment, Cashin?" Lysander whispered, the cold steel of the silencer pressing against the Alpha's forehead, creating a stark contrast against the feverish, flushed skin of a man in a rut. Outside the rain-lashed windows of the penthouse, lightning fractured the sky, illuminating the ruins of the chaos they had wrought. Shattered glass, overturned velvet chairs, and the lingering, suffocating scent of ozone and bitter almonds. This was not a lover's quarrel. This was an execution 5 years in the making. To understand why a fragile-looking Omega like Lysander Vane was holding the heir to the Thorn Empire at gunpoint, one must rewind the clock to the ashes of the Vane legacy. The Vanes had been old money, nobility of the business world, until Silas Thorn, Cashin's father, had orchestrated a hostile takeover so brutal it left Lysander's father dead by suicide and his mother a hollow shell. Lysander had been 22. An unbonded Omega with nothing but a sharp mind and a face that could launch 1,000 ships, or sink them. He had reinvented himself. He scrubbed the Vane name from his history, dyed his platinum hair a deep, raven black, and suppressed his natural scent, a soft, floral lily, under layers of synthetic blockers until he was a ghost. He became Julian Blackwood, a corporate strategist with a reputation for ruthlessness. His target was not Silas directly. Silas was too guarded, too paranoid. No, the weak point was the son, Cashin Thorn, the crown prince, the alpha who had everything. The plan was simple: seduce the son, isolate him, destroy the family from the inside out. Their first meeting had been calculated down to the second. It was at the Winter Solstice Gala, a display of grotesque wealth held in the Thorn skyscraper. Lysander wore a suit of crushed white velvet, a deliberate choice to stand out in a sea of black tuxedos. He didn't approach Cashin. He ignored him. In the world of high-tier alphas, indifference was the ultimate lure. Cashin Thorn was a sculpture of ice and arrogance. He stood 6'3", broad-shouldered, with eyes the color of oxidized copper and hair like spun silver. He was surrounded by Omegas vying for his attention, radiating pheromones that smelled of expensive champagne and desperation. But Cashin looked bored, until he saw Lysander. Lysander was standing by the balcony, sipping water, looking at the city lights with a melancholic disdain. When Cashin approached, his pheromones hit Lysander like a physical wall. Winter frost, cedarwood, and the metallic tang of gun oil. It was oppressive, a display of dominance that would make a lesser Omega kneel. Lysander didn't flinch. He turned, swirling his glass. "Mr. Thorn, you smell like a headache." Cashin blinked, stunned. Then, a slow, predatory smirk curved his lips. "And you, Mr. Blackwood, smell like absolutely nothing. Are you broken?" "I'm efficient," Lysander countered, his voice smooth as silk wrapping a knife. "I don't need biology to close a deal." That was the hook. For the next 6 months, Lysander played the game perfectly. He became Cashin's executive assistant. He reorganized Cashin's schedule, saved him millions in bad investments, and protected him from corporate vultures. He made himself indispensable. He was the perfect beta subordinate, efficient, cold, unavailable. But at night, Lysander let the mask slip, just an inch. A lingering glance. A brush of hands over a document. He watched Cashin with the eyes of a man who wanted to be devoured, then pulled away the moment Cashin leaned in. It was psychological warfare. He was driving the alpha insane. The turning point came during a business trip to Macau. They were staying in the presidential suite. A tropical storm had grounded all flights, trapping them in the hotel. Lysander knew Cashin's rut was approaching. He had hacked the medical records weeks ago. He had timed this trip specifically for this vulnerability. Lysander stopped taking his suppressants 3 days prior. As the storm raged outside, the air in the suite grew heavy. Lysander sat on the sofa, unbuttoning his collar, letting his true scent bleed out for the first time in years. It wasn't just lilies anymore. It had twisted into something darker, night-blooming jasmine and cyanide. Intoxicating. Deadly. Cashin came out of his bedroom, his shirt soaked with sweat, his eyes blown wide with the beginning haze of the rut. He froze. The scent hit him, bypassing logic, slamming straight into the primitive hindbrain of the alpha. "Julian," Cashin growled, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in Lysander's chest. "What are you doing?" "My name," Lysander said softly, standing up and walking toward the dangerous, trembling beast, "is Lysander." He stopped inches from Cashin. The heat radiating off the alpha was furnace hot. Lysander reached out, his cool fingers tracing the line of Cashin's jaw. "And I can help you." Cashin caught his wrist. His grip was bruising. "You're an Omega. You've been lying." "Everyone lies, Cashin. Even you." Lysander stepped closer, pressing his body against the alpha. "You pretend to be the perfect heir, but you hate him, don't you? You hate your father." It was a gamble, a massive one. If Lysander was wrong, Cashin would snap his neck. Cashin's eyes flashed with a violent mixture of lust and rage. "You know nothing." "I know that he beats you," Lysander whispered, the secret slipping from his lips like poison. He had seen the scars on Cashin's back in the changing rooms of the private gym. "I know you want to watch his empire burn just as much as I do." The admission shattered the last of Cashin's restraint. With a roar, he slammed Lysander against the wall, burying his face in the Omega's scent gland. It wasn't gentle. It was a collision of violence and need. They tore at each other, a frenzy of teeth and skin. When Cashin claimed him, it wasn't love. It was a conquest. And when Lysander arched into him, digging his nails into the alpha's back, it wasn't submission. It was entrapment. For 3 days they didn't leave the room. They mated like enemies trying to kill each other with pleasure. Lysander let Cashin knot him, let him bite the nape of his neck, creating a temporary bond. He needed Cashin to trust him implicitly. He needed the chemical enslavement that came with a bond. When they returned to the city, the dynamic had shifted. Cashin was possessive, obsessed. He gave Lysander access to the highest levels of the Thorn encryption. He brought Lysander to family dinners, parading him in front of Silas Thorn like a prize. Silas, the old viper, watched them with cold, dead eyes. He suspected something, but the mating bite on Lysander's neck was a powerful alibi. An alpha didn't bite a spy. Lysander worked fast. He siphoned funds into offshore accounts. He leaked evidence of Silas's illegal arms dealings to the federal bureaus. He planted digital evidence that implicated Silas in the murder of a rival senator. He built a cage around the Thorn family, bar by bar. But something unintended was happening. In the quiet moments, in the dark of their shared bed, Cashin was gentle. He would trace the scars on Lysander's soul with words rather than hands. He spoke of his childhood, of the cruelty of a father who viewed his son as breeding stock and a weapon. "I never wanted this life," Cashin confessed one night, his arm heavy over Lysander's waist. "I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to build things, not destroy them." Lysander felt a pang of something sharp in his chest. Guilt? No, he couldn't afford guilt. He is a thorn, Lysander reminded himself. His blood is tainted. The climax of the plan arrived on the night of the shareholders' meeting. The data leak was scheduled to go live at midnight. The FBI was tipped off. The Thorn Empire would collapse by sunrise. Lysander stood in the penthouse packing a bag. He had to leave before the fallout. He had his passport, a new identity, and enough money to disappear. The door opened. Cashin walked in. He didn't look like a man whose life was about to end. He looked calm. Terrifyingly calm. He locked the door behind him and tossed a folder onto the coffee table. "You're leaving," Cashin stated. It wasn't a question. Lysander froze. He turned, his face a mask of ice. "It's over, Cashin." "Is it?" Cashin walked over to the bar and poured a drink. The Vane family revenge. It was poetic, really. You played the part of the submissive Omega beautifully. Lysander went cold. He reached into his bag and pulled out the gun he had bought for this exact worst-case scenario. He leveled it at Cashin. You knew. Lysander's voice trembled. Just once. I knew from the moment you walked into the gala, Cashin said, taking a sip of his whiskey. He didn't even look at the gun. You think you can hide a hatred that pure? It has a scent, Lysander. It smells stronger than any pheromone. And you let me? Lysander shouted, the composure cracking. You let me destroy your legacy? You let me into your bed. Let me mark you. I told you, Cashin said, finally turning to face the barrel. I hate him. Cashin took a step forward. Stay back, Lysander warned, his finger tightening on the trigger. My father killed your parents, Cashin said, taking another step. But he also killed my mother. Did you know that? She tried to leave him. He staged a car accident. Lysander faltered. The gun lowered an inch. I couldn't kill him myself, Cashin continued, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. Patricide is a difficult stain to wash out. But you were the perfect weapon. I saw you, Lysander. I saw the fire in you. And I thought asterisk let him burn it down. Let him burn it all down. Asterisk. I used you. Lysander hissed, tears stinging his eyes. I seduced you. Did you? Cashin was in front of him now. He reached out and wrapped his hand around the barrel of the gun, pressing it against his own forehead. The position from the beginning of our story. Pull the trigger, Lysander. Finish your revenge. I am the last thorn. If I die, the bloodline ends. The lightning flashed. The thunder rattled the windows. Why? Lysander choked out. Why give me this? Because, Cashin said, his eyes burning with a twisted, dark devotion. You are the only thing in this godforsaken world that I have ever chosen for myself. You aren't my enemy, Lysander. You are my equal. Lysander stared at him. He saw the truth in Cashin's eyes. This wasn't a man who had been duped. This was a man who had walked into the trap willingly, just to feel something real. Cashin had handed Lysander the knife and bared his throat, trusting him to cut out the cancer that was Silas, gambling that Lysander wouldn't kill the surgeon too. The gun dropped from Lysander's hand, thudding dully onto the carpet. Cashin didn't smile. He grabbed Lysander by the lapels and kissed him. Hard, desperate, a seal on a new contract. The police are downstairs, Cashin murmured against his lips. They're arresting my father right now. The stocks have plummeted. I am ruined. We are ruined, Lysander corrected, clutching Cashin's shirt. No, Cashin pulled back, his copper eyes gleaming. The Thorns are ruined. But we have the offshore accounts you thought you hid from me. We have the leverage. We have the freedom. Cashin picked up the gun, engaged the safety, and set it on the table. I'm not an architect anymore, Lysander, Cashin said, his voice dropping to that command tone that made Lysander's knees weak. But I think we can build something new on the ashes. Don't you? Lysander looked at the man who was his enemy, his lover, and his partner in crime. The hatred was still there, a dull ache, but it was being suffocated by something stronger. Power. And a love that was as sharp and dangerous as a double-edged sword. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf, by realizing they both wanted the same blood on their teeth. If you enjoyed seeing Lysander take control only to realize he was the one being played, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a husband who let you destroy his family just to prove his love? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,